Something in the air has shifted, and it has lingered long enough that people can no longer pretend they don't feel it. For years, the connection between Heughan and Caitriona Balfe felt like a constant, a familiar rhythm to anyone who followed their work. It was steady, recognizable, almost reassuring. Now, without a single dramatic announcement or visible clash, a quiet transformation has begun to draw attention. Across fan circles and hushed media conversations, one simple but unsettling question keeps surfacing. What is really happening between them? The change didn't arrive in a single headline or defining moment. It revealed itself slowly, through details so small that only long-time observers would notice. Conversations that once flowed with ease now seem more deliberate, more carefully shaped. Smiles are still there, professionalism is still there, but the cadence has shifted. For a long time, Sam and Caitriona were seen as the embodiment of natural chemistry. Their shared presence felt effortless, almost instinctive, both on screen and in public. Interviews sparkled with mutual respect, easy humor, and a sense of shared understanding that felt unspoken but undeniable. That history makes the current uncertainty feel louder than any argument ever could. What complicates the story is the absence of drama. There have been no public disagreements, no sharp remarks, no visible signs of personal fallout. Instead, there is restraint, a narrowing of interaction that feels intentional rather than accidental. It's the kind of distance that raises more questions precisely because it avoids explanation. Fans began spotting it first in interviews. Answers became more contained, less rooted in shared memories, more centered on individual journeys. References that once came naturally now appear carefully chosen, if they appear at all. The shift is subtle, but repeated often enough to feel deliberate. At public events, body language echoes the same story. Where there was once easy closeness, there is now respectful space. Not coldness, not avoidance, just a noticeable adjustment, the kind that suggests awareness of being watched and a conscious decision to be more guarded. This stands in contrast to years of consistency. Sam and Caitriona navigated intense fan attention for a long time without retreating from each other publicly. They managed to set boundaries while maintaining warmth. That balance now seems to have tilted toward caution. The timing adds another layer of intrigue. Both have stepped into new phases of their lives and careers, with shifting priorities and growing pressures. Growth has a way of creating space, even when affection remains. The question is whether this distance is simply the natural result of change or something more carefully chosen. Observers note that neither has addressed the speculation directly. In a world where clarification often comes quickly, silence begins to feel meaningful. It leaves the narrative open, unresolved, inviting interpretation rather than closing it down. Some suggest the shift reflects a desire to reset boundaries after years of intense projection from fans. Being constantly framed through a shared narrative can become exhausting. Creating space might be less about conflict and more about reclaiming individuality. That explanation makes sense, yet it feels incomplete. Others argue that emotional closeness, especially under constant scrutiny, cannot remain frozen in time. Relationships evolve as people do. Familiarity can soften into something quieter, less performative. Still, the careful nature of this change suggests it was considered, not accidental. What remains undeniable is that the bond hasn't vanished. Professional respect is visible, and neither has dismissed the importance of the shared past. The connection feels intact, but transformed. The challenge lies in understanding what that transformation truly represents. There is also the weight of expectation. Fans have spent years reading meaning into every glance and gesture. Stepping back from that spotlight requires intention. Any adjustment, no matter how small, is bound to feel significant. As speculation continues, the lack of concrete answers becomes the story itself. Not because something scandalous is unfolding, but because something has changed without explanation. People are uncomfortable with unfinished narratives, especially ones they believed they understood. What exists now is a pattern of restraint, a recalibration of visibility, and a shared quiet that invites more questions than it resolves. Whatever is happening between Heughan and Caitriona Balfe is unfolding away from declarations and headlines. And that quiet, more than anything else, is what has everyone watching more closely than ever. As the silence stretches on, attention shifts from guessing motives to studying patterns. The absence of denial or reassurance suggests that whatever is evolving doesn't require public framing. For Sam Heughan, discretion has long been a discipline, not a reaction. Controlling narrative space seems to matter more than satisfying curiosity. For Caitriona Balfe, the change feels just as deliberate, though different in tone. She speaks with greater precision about work, boundaries, and identity. The warmth remains, but it's directed inward rather than outward. This evolution suggests intention, not withdrawal. Industry observers note that long-running creative partnerships rarely stay the same. Time introduces new responsibilities, personal growth, and the need for recalibration. What once felt effortless can begin to feel overexposed under years of expectation. Stepping back becomes a form of preservation. There is also the burden of projection. When every interaction is examined for meaning, even neutrality can be mistaken for tension. In that light, restraint becomes a boundary, not a signal. Some fans read the distance as proof of conflict, but there is little to support that conclusion. No contradictory statements, no visible discomfort, no professional disengagement. Instead, there is consistency in respect and alignment. That consistency complicates the idea of a falling out. Another possibility is maturity. Relationships formed under intense attention often evolve toward privacy as people grow. What once felt safe to share can later feel too personal to display. From the outside, that transition can look like distance, even when connection remains. Public moments now appear more carefully composed. Interactions are courteous, measured, and unmistakably professional. The ease that once invited interpretation has been replaced by clarity of roles. That clarity reduces ambiguity, but it also dims the spark people were used to reading into. Timing reinforces this shift. Both have expanded their creative lives beyond the shared work that once defined them. New projects, new circles, and new priorities reshape how relationships are expressed. Growth rarely arrives with spectacle, but it is always visible to those who look closely. What makes it harder to interpret is the depth of shared history. Years of collaboration create familiarity that doesn't disappear overnight. But familiarity doesn't need constant display to survive. Sometimes it endures best when it isn't continuously performed. The absence of commentary suggests trust in the audience's ability to accept change, or perhaps a quiet assertion that not every evolution needs an explanation. Public figures are allowed to shift without issuing statements. As the urgency fades, reflection takes its place. People begin to question what they expect from visible partnerships. The desire for certainty often overlooks the truth that human dynamics are fluid. Not everything needs to be named to be real. In that light, the question itself transforms. Instead of asking what went wrong, people begin to ask what has grown. The shift may not signal loss, but refinement. A move toward sustainability rather than spectacle. What remains unmistakable is the shared respect. It appears in tone, in acknowledgement, in the absence of dismissal. Whatever has changed has done so without erasing the past. That continuity suggests care, not fracture.